Today I've got an awesome guest. I've got Frank Akerich, president at Blue Duck Wealth Management. Frank's got 18 years of experience in the financial business and over 50 years experience in business. And just want to welcome Frank to the show. Welcome to the show, Frank.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great. So I'm looking forward to our chat today because we were talking before the show just about some of the challenges that financial advisors have today in business and starting the practice. And now that I think about it, between me and you, Frank, we've got close to 40 years of experience in the financial business.
That's scary.
Yes, it is. Yeah, things have changed quite drastically. What would you say is kind of one of the biggest challenges that advisors have today in the financial business?
Well, I think, Daniel, that what most of us as advisors, and even in my case where I supposedly recruit and train advisors, what we run into is the dynamics that we all learned the business from. We either learned how to be really good with clients and take care of their financial goals and help them hit those goals, or we learned how to be good at marketing, but there was not enough in our industry, there's not enough time, it seems like, to really do both. So what happens is an advisor is really not very good with clients, but has a ton of them, or they're really good with clients and they have a really hard time getting the next one because, as you know, because it's what you do, marketing takes a lot of time. And a lot of that boils down to the reality that we're looking for lifetime clients, and yet we're trying to get those lifetime clients like we would get a prostitute, in the sense of, you go out and pay for it and expect for it just to show up and be a lifetime client. It's a dating and marriage relationship, just like any other dating and marriage relationship. It's just a different contract, so to speak, than Jeannie and I have. But it really is the same, because you're wanting a lifetime, because you're wanting generational business. I've got third generation right now clients. I'm working with grandkids, and I wouldn't trade that for the world, because I enjoy doing that. It's my passion. But that doesn't come from, quote unquote, most of the marketing programs out there. And if it did, it's anything that's too quick doesn't last.
Yeah. Oh, you've unpacked about 3 different conversations in that comment, so which is great. I think one of the things that you kind of mentioned is that it's not like let's just go and get clients. And I think the financial industry, and even when I was in there, it was all about how can I get the next client. And
right.
So many advisors are there. Maybe they're going to networking events and they're just hoping to find that one person that's going to say yes.
Yes.
And I think one of the biggest challenges that advisors have is that they don't really know who their ideal client is.
I think you're right.
I talk about this as kind of the foundation of your marketing. Once you know who the ideal client is, for me, the next step would be of knowing and you getting to know, what are the problems or challenges that client has, so that now you can offer something to them.
Yep.
But so often when I speak with advisors, it's kind of like, how quickly I can get in there, how quickly can I convince them that I'm the best advisor and they become my client, and then I can go and move to the next one.
Right.
And, it's unfortunate that people don't spend the time to more of nurturing that whole process.
Yeah, no, I think you're right on track, because especially the part, and you helped me with this, is the ability to specifically identify who it is you want, either as a client or, in my case, as an advisor, because then that narrows it. Example, I grew up fishing, in Texas. We fished down the Gulf of Mexico. Well, you didn't just throw a line in the water and hope something bit. We were fishing specifically for a certain kind of fish, and that determined which bait we used, where we fished, and how we fished. But if we were just going to fish, okay, we'd catch catfish or hardheads or whatever. But if we knew what we were looking for, then it changed everything. And you're really good at, and you helped me do that, you're really good at focusing on that. I think that's, like you said, that's the first step.
Yeah. So, you talk about fishing. One of the analogies that I use that, a lot of advisors and what the financial industry is teaching, it's kind of like when somebody's on an ocean, okay, and they're fishing, they've got these big trawlers. And all they do is they lower their net and they scrape the bottom of the ocean.
Yep.
Unfortunately, what happens is they pick anything and everything. And I've seen some YouTube videos where they're like, wow, what in the world did they scrape off the bottom? But this is what happens with advisors. And becoming very frustrated and overwhelmed because they're spent so much time, and I call it processing the fish, because they might have that one or two people in the net that maybe are their ideal clients, but by the time they get to them, they might be completely exhausted or tired, because again, they're trying to catch anything and everything. Where one of the things, and that what technologies has changed in social media, and I think this is where LinkedIn really comes into its own. I use the analogy: stop fishing on the ocean like a trawler, and start fishing in a pond that you create, or even start fishing in a barrel. Because if you know who you're after, and I mentioned to you before this, I started working with an advisor where he works with teachers, and in 3 weeks we built a list of 300 teachers that are now his target market, and we can go and communicate with these individuals and having that conversation with them, where now we're not just kind of using the shotgun approach or or machine gun, where you see a crowd of people and you're shooting at them hoping to hit somebody. Right. You're more like a sniper. You know who you're going after, you know who you want to deal with. And I think LinkedIn, bar none, is the best platform for that, because they've done all the sorting already. Like you mentioned with the fishing, like you're not going fishing on the ocean, you're going to fish and using, how much fish would you catch if you were fishing on a lake that was stocked with, let's just say, salmon, and there were no other fish, just salmon? Well, you're not going to catch a catfish in a lake that only has salmon in it. You're going to catch salmon every time, all the time, day and night. I think it'll almost get boring.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that can happen on LinkedIn.
Well, and I think, and as you walked me through how your system works, one of the things that we were talking about at the firm here yesterday. One of the things that I really appreciate about your system is that, okay, so LinkedIn gives me a specific pool or a pond or lake where I know that in general, I'm dealing with business owners or business executives or people who are more business minded. But your system then allowed me to call out, there's 70% of the people on LinkedIn never check they never check their messages, they never check their profile. Well, if you don't know that, number one, but even if you do know it, how do you call those people out? But your system then helps me immediately get rid of the people that are not ever checking their profile and narrow down to people who are actually checking their profile. And then second and third level, begin to get them where I'm engaged in it's not just having the salmon in the lake. You actually are helping me find the salmon that's number one hungry and is over 5 pounds or whatever.
Yeah, no, exactly. And the ones that maybe are not hungry right now, hey, they'll be hungry maybe a month from now, 2 months from now, and having that follow-up system to that. So the second point, going back to the original question that you had with marketing, so it's really important to know the who and the what. The other one is, and I've had one of my coaches kind of told me this, he said, you know what, marketing is like kissing, okay? Or sales are like kissing. You need to have both people leaning in.
Yeah.
And we know how awkward it is when you're like, want to go and kiss, and the other person's like leaning backwards. Suddenly it becomes really awkward. And I think this is often what happens with individuals when they're in sales or they're in marketing, is that they're leaning in and the other person's like going, "Oh, stay away from me. Like, I don't want anything to do with you." And this is, again, knowing the who it is that you're after and not going in a little, too fast trying to get that sale. It's just like saying, "Hey, you know what? Do you just even want to connect?" And that's one of the first thing that I, teach advisors, is just like saying, hey, the first step you want to do is just like, even, hey, do you want to connect? You send out an invitation, and either they're going to connect with you or not. And in that invitation, all you're selling is that step. Hey, I just want to connect. I think it's, LinkedIn is a great platform. I just want to grow my network. That's why we're all here. Once they're connected with you, then you can go and sell the next step. Hey, do you just want to engage? Do you just want to have a conversation? Like, why are you here on LinkedIn? Just to get that engagement, and, doing it more slower, as opposed to, I've seen, so many, advisors or even other individuals, and I get them every day, people kind of saying, hey, do you want to get married right on the first date? And it's like, whoa, hold on, you're creepy. Like, you don't even know what I want. We just connected because here we're on LinkedIn, and you're asking, you're giving me a marriage proposal.
No, you're right. Totally right. Yeah. And that's, again, knowing how your system works, it's been tremendously time saving. One of the real benefits to using your system, I've been, like you said, I've been doing this for a long time. and struggled like all other advisors have struggled with 83,000 different marketing plans. Most of them kind of wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Here, read the book and call me. But what your system does is it automates the front end of the relationship, so that by the time I actually have to start spending time on LinkedIn with you, you're already leaning in. And that's what you're saying is if you're not leaning in, then I don't ever really have to physically spend any time on LinkedIn with you. By the time I engage with you, you're already leaning in.
Yeah, no, exactly. And again, that's what marketing does. And I look at it this way. Often advisors tell me, oh, I'm not good at sales. And I said, you know what, if you do proper job with marketing, sales you just become an order taker, because you have already pre-sold individuals. They already understand what you're doing. And I think this is really the key for, LinkedIn. When somebody connects with you, they go and check out your LinkedIn profile. They know
Right.
what you do. So when they're
Right.
connecting with you, they're not just like going, oh, I don't know who this person is. They already, I always make the assumption if somebody connects with me, they know what I do, and they're giving me permission to go and start talk to them and share with them what is it that I do. And if
Right.
somebody doesn't, hey, tell me right from the beginning. And I do have individuals that, I do connect with. And because I make it very plain, I deal with financial advisors, and I send them an article, let's say that I just wrote an article of, why LinkedIn is the best platform to be on, in 2018 for financial advisors. And I have people that tell me, hey, I'm not an advisor. I'm like going, perfect. You just deselected yourself from my radar screen. And I can say,
Right.
you know what, I don't have to go and follow up with you anymore because you have deselected. You can still be in my network, because the key to LinkedIn, and I think this is where advisors don't fully understand what the platform is for. It is to connect with your ideal clients, but you also have to remember the fact that you have to grow your network. Even though now I think there is 500 million people on, probably even more now, on LinkedIn, and a new member joins once every, I don't know, 2 of them every minute or second. I don't know the statistics, but it's fairly, it's a huge number.
Yeah.
You are only connected to the people that you're connected to, and you need to grow that network. So the more connections you have, the better off you are. So
Right.
there are kind of 2 different ways of growing your network. First, grow the network, and then start looking for those, ideal clients you want to connect with. So,
Yeah, and that's just, I mean, that's again, the different pieces of your system, but then also, we were talking yesterday because, as you know, I referred you to some folks in house here, and one of the comments he made was because they were looking at your software and your system versus another, fly by night software that was actually more expensive and had no follow up. The software was just buy the software, here, go get them. Whereas in your case, you're actually working with the advisor or working with your client and helping them do what you just described. And you and I both know, you don't get that very often at all.
yeah. Well, I think what it comes down to, and as we're talking about the experience in, I don't have 50 years experience in business like you do, but I'm getting on the 22nd year for myself. I think really the big key is, and both me and you have invested different programs and different systems, is that, there is usually a foundation that somebody has to build. And unfortunately, there is a lot of individuals, and I know I was there myself, where I just like, hey, just give me the answer. Let's go to the end of it and just tell me what I need to do at the end, without really building the proper foundation. And I think this is where the challenge often is. And I see a lot of individuals, a lot of marketing gurus that are out there that are telling people what to do. And unfortunately, really, if you don't know the basics, where it comes down to who your ideal client is, and this is the key to do any work on LinkedIn, you got to be very specific, because again, you're going to be fishing, on the ocean, and you're just connecting with anybody and everybody. You're not going to get any traction, and you're going to spend so much time and effort with individuals. And I think really the key is, really knowing who that ideal client is, knowing what that solution is, and knowing what is the message, which is also the important. But that becomes easy once you know who you're working with and what is the solution that you offer. But what do you find as some of the big mistakes that advisors, from your experience, that advisors have done, or that our listeners can kind of learn from, that you have experienced in your years in the business?
You mean in general or in marketing?
Just in general. I mean, no, let's kind of focus on the marketing, because one of the things that I wanted to mention, and you've alluded to that a little bit, one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is that, first of all, yeah, I got into the financial business to be the greatest and best financial advisors that I can be. But that's not my job. That's not what I get paid for. I get paid for prospecting. I get paid for finding the individuals that can go and use my service because, you know what, I did have CFP, and we talked about this before. I'm not going to go into detail. But, I got my CFP thinking, wow, now that I've got CFP, my business is going to change where, if I got my CFP and the next morning there were crickets, nothing really changed. I didn't understand the whole fact that first, I'm a marketer. Like that's my job as a financial advisor. I need to go out there and everyday prospect, look for potential clients so that I can go and help them.
Right.
I can become the best financial advisor and be the best kept secret. You know what? That's not going to help anybody.
No.
So on the marketing side, what do you see some of the challenges or things that advisors have done?
Well, I think first of all, just what you said, I think the biggest mistake that all of us have made in our industry is we don't know who we're looking for. We don't have a clue. We'll take anything, like you said, we'll scrape the bottom of the ocean and try and eat it, much less trying to get a referral the word duplication is a word I use a lot. And in your system allows me to duplicate over and over and over the advisor that I'm looking for, or in their case, the client they're looking for. So number one, I don't think we know who we're looking for. I think we've come into the business but we've come into the financial business depending on how we showed up. We showed up with, if they could fog a mirror, they're a potential client. Well, that's so wrong, it's not funny. Even if they've got a lot of assets, that doesn't mean they're your ideal client. If they're real high maintenance, so that's number one. Number one, we don't know who we're looking for. Number two, I think we've all been misled to think that this is a retail business. That we think, like you said, get my CFP. I've got my CFP. I've got my RF, whatever I've got, and now I just should sit back and here they come. Especially if we came in the business through one of the big boy name brand, outside the building, names where we were led to believe that all we got to do is show up in our cubicle and people are just going to walk in because the name on the outside of the building. Again, they might, but that doesn't mean they're an ideal client. So number two, I think we think it's a retail business. And so number three, I really don't think most advisors have any business being advisors because they and maybe not their fault. They've been led to believe that it's a retail business. They've been led to believe that anybody counts. And in reality, this is not a 24-hour urgent care clinic. This is neuroscience or neurosurgery, and it's neurosurgery. And so therefore, you're looking for a specific client, but you as an advisor have to be real specific in your skill set, and you have to be willing to do what it takes to be a neurosurgeon. Well, in our case, like you just said, we're prospectors. They're not going to walk in, so I've got to go find the people that I'm skilled helping them achieve their financial goals. And so 90% of my business is finding the right people. 10% is actually doing a financial plan with them and following up. And that's the easy part, even though that's what we study for. The hard part is like you said, is marketing or prospecting or whatever. I think that's the biggest mistake we make is I don't think we understand how the business works. I think we think it's just I got my certification, whatever that is, CLU or my Series 7 or my Series, I got all the licenses. Okay, wonderful. That means you passed medical school. That's all it means. It doesn't mean you're a doctor. And number one, you don't have any patients. So, and I think that's really the biggest mistake we make is we don't understand how the business really works.
Well, again, wow. And I appreciate you saying that. And, that hurts a little bit. There are a lot of advisors that I speak to every day where it's like, I ask them, how many clients do you have? Well, I haven't made sale, let's just even say in the last, 6 months or 3 months. And I said, what, if you have a business and you're not making money, you have a very expensive hobby. You don't have a business. And let's just call it what it is. So, what you mentioned there is that a lot of advisors shouldn't be there. Like it hurts, but that's the reality. Like there is a lot of advisors. And I tell you, there was a point in my career as a financial advisor that I wish somebody came and told me that.
Right.
And there are a few advisors that I tell them, listen, you are here. You have to market. You have to go out there, pick up the phone and make the phone calls.
Yep.
If you're not willing to do that, go get a job. Because you really have no place to be in the financial industry because prospecting is part of your job. And so often I talk to advisors where, They say, well, I'm an introvert. I'm not an extrovert. If I go to a networking function, I don't talk to anybody. And I'm like going, you know what, maybe you need to think about career change, because
Exactly.
in order to survive, you need to be able to talk to individuals. And I'll tell you, that was my struggle in the financial industry. Okay. I was always hoping that I'm going to go and talk and run into somebody, and maybe there's going to be a referral, and really struggling because I didn't get the concept that my job first and foremost is not to be the best financial advisor, is to be a marketer. And my job is go out there and every day having conversations with people. And I think the industry as a whole, unfortunately, is not really helping advisors to really go and do that. And that's why I kind of moved back into the business. After I, resigned about 5 years ago, I was upset with the whole industry. I didn't want anything to do with it. But here I find myself back in. But I'm coming more with the passion. And I tell a lot of, individuals, a lot of advisors that I talk to, hey, I want to be the guy I wish I met 20 years ago.
Right.
That told me the truth, didn't tell me what, I think that they want to hear, but told me what I need to hear. Tell me the truth. And that's really what these conversations are all about. It's like, there are some advisors that have no business in the business because they bought the opportunity. And I love the analogy, and I'm totally stealing that off of you. Like, it's not a retail business. Like, you just don't open your doors, put your shingle up, and hoping that somebody's going to come to you.
No,
it doesn't work like that. Not only that, there is so much more pressure now. Like, 20 years ago when I started in the business, and I look how I started in the business, and I'm like going, I really had no business to be in the business to begin with. I had zero experience. I really didn't even know what I was doing, even though the first year, again, because I followed the system, which is a key part to what we're talking about here. First year in the business, selling disability insurance, cold calling, I did, over $100,000 in annualized premium. Not because I was good at, but I was following a system the company had, and, and it worked. When I went on my own, took me 20 years to realize what I had 20 years ago. Because again, I was trying to create a system, but unfortunately I bought into the whole thing of, just hoping I'm going to find the right person, not really having the focus that I had when I started with. And I think this is really the, biggest challenges we're talking about, is that knowing who the individual is and knowing what you're providing. And in this day and age, nobody wants to deal with a generalist. If you don't start to specialize,
you're right.
And my view is that in the next 5 years, maybe even earlier, if you are in the business and you're just there, using your analogy, I've used that too, you're looking for people that fog the mirror, you're not going to be in the business anymore, because people don't need you. People don't need to just buy an insurance policy. They don't need to buy an investment. They're looking for advice, because there is so much more information out there that it's really confusing for individuals. And what they're looking for is that surgeon, somebody that can say, wow, you know what, you're a teacher, you're a CEO, you're a CF, whatever is the target market you're dealing with. You have a specific problem, and hey, I'm the guy to help you. I have a specific solution for your problem. And the only way somebody can get to that point is when they really start to focus on a specific market, specific niche, and deal within that, because that's the only way you're going to get to know really what those problems are. Other than that, you're just going to be a generalist.
Exactly. And you're right. And you will, like you said, there'll be some generalists that'll make a living, but it's always going to be unpredictable. And if I'm going to do this and I'm going to help people, if the goal, like you said, is to help people, if that's my end game, then I've got to have people to help, and I can't help people who don't want help. So how many times have we had that client? And so what you're saying is, if you use your system, then what it does is it allows me to find the people who are looking for me. And that's kind of the phrase I'm looking for people who are looking for me. Now I have a system in place that automates almost 80% of the finding the person who's looking for me, and lets me do what I'm good at, which is once I've found the person who's leaning in, I'm good at taking that and moving into helping them hit their financial goals. I'm great there, because now I have a system that'll get me to that spot without me having to figure it out.
Yeah, perfect. And really what it comes down to, that's what, as you were talking about, I'm going, well, listen, that's what advertising does, but we kind of have advertising 2.0, because we're not waiting for people to come to us. We're taking our message to them and then putting it in front of them and saying, hey, is this something that you're really interested in? You know what?
Right.
I'm an expert in this. I deal with, teachers or doctors, and I help them this way. Then it's just a matter of saying, hey, am I the guy that can help you with that? You're
Right.
telling me you have this problem, you have this challenge. Okay, can I help you with that? And again, having a system, having a strategy, it's just a matter of working the strategy. And I think, one of the questions I always ask advisors is, what's your biggest problem in your business? Because I know what's the biggest problem in my business. And I said, I look at him every single morning when I look in the mirror. I am. And having a system, it takes that emotion out of it. And I think this is what, the system and the automation that, that I help advisors to instill in their business is all about, where if I can remove myself from a lot of the emotional decisions that we're making, and I think advisors can relate to this, when you're dealing with a client and they're watching the stock market every single day,
Wrong client.
you don't want that client because you're going to be answering phone calls every 15 minutes because the market has gone up and down. But if you bring in front of them a strategy and saying, hey, this is the strategy, let's really research it, let's really figure out what is it that you want. And then when the market goes up and down, we will test it against the strategy. Hey, has the outcome that you're looking for of the strategy that we've done changed? If it hasn't changed, then we're not going to do anything. So often people go and look at the external things that are happening that have nothing to do with your long-term strategy, and they make impulsive decisions. And you know what? I spoke to somebody and he mentioned to me, he said, the reason people lose money in the stock market is because they're making emotional decisions, and we all know they buy high and they sell low. Why? Because they don't have a strategy. They're just reacting.
Right.
And it's more from the perspective of, do you have a strategy? Stick with the strategy and keep on doing that. And that's what, having a system is really all about.
And then at the same time, that leads me to the thing, the other thing I think we do that we mess up as advisors is we use a system. If we find one, we use a system until we get one or two good clients, and then we quit using the system, and it works. So we quit using it. We got one or two good clients, and then we go back to what wasn't working before. We ask them to go to lunch with their friends from work, or we do all that stuff, dumb stuff that never worked before, instead of just consistently every day, every week, using the system that got us to two or three good clients and just let it work. And I think that's the other thing we mess up on is, it's kind of like, well, that works, so we're going to quit doing it.
And, I don't know what it is. And it hurts when you're saying that, because it just reminded me of, that's my 18-year experience in the financial industry. And I tell people, you know what, I don't have 18-year experience. I have 1 year experience 18 times over. Because I've tried so many different things, from seminars, from working with, CPAs and accountants, to so many things, and they all worked. And then I got busy because it worked so well, and I stopped doing it. And then next year would roll around, and I'm like going, oh, well, what am I going to do this year? Instead of, and it's, I'm glad I'm not the only one. And you're mentioning that, I kind of call it the financial advisor disease, because we find out what works and we use it, get really good at it, and then we move on to the next thing. And it's like, well, hang on, having a system that works and keep on doing that over and over again, it's the consistency that really makes the difference. And I think when it comes to marketing and having a system that you have a chance to follow up with your prospective clients, it's all in the follow-up. It's all in the consistency. And that's really is the key. Because, if I were to ask you, and I still have some from like 5 years ago, I have this, this bowl of business cards that I went to networking functions that I went and collected. Okay. And I would go collect these business cards, and I still have them somewhere. I know they're here. But so we're really good at going and getting the business card, but the follow-up wasn't there. Maybe I called them once, couldn't get a hold of them, and then I left it. And this is really the challenge, and having a system and using the system that that I teach advisors to do is automating some of that. Remove yourself from that equation. And that's really is the key to to success. So, what, this has been awesome. And I would definitely, Frank, we're going to do this again, because, with the experience that both me and you have, I know that advisors can really benefit from that. Just because just before we close off, is there anything else that kind of on the things that we're talking about, knowing who your client is, knowing, becoming a specialist, is kind of the key. Is there something else that you may want to add before we go?
I would just say probably the only thing I'd add is what you've alluded to, and I have too, is if I'm going to be good at helping people, I have to have a mentor. I have to. Because, like you said, and it goes back to what you said, the biggest problem in my business is in the mirror every morning. Well, if I don't have a mentor, number one, I won't even know that. And number two, I won't know what to do about it. But if I have a mentor who has enough fruit on the tree, or in my case, I have two mentors, uh, then what that does is it keeps me honest, it keeps me humble, and it keeps me accountable so that, if I don't see it, they can see it for me. But if I do see it, I now have somebody to go to that's going to, like you said, honestly look at me and go, hey, maybe you ought to think about a career change, or have you tried this? And that's probably the last thing I would tell you is, and you alluded to it, but I would tell you, man, if I'm in this, really any business, but if I'm in this business and I don't have a mentor, it's just a matter of time before the whole thing unwinds.
100%. And it's probably the biggest regret that I have. I think I was in the business for 5 years, and I had the opportunity. I spoke to somebody, and I probably still have his name somewhere. Was a coach that offered to help me, and I just looked at it, and I think at that point it was like $7,000 a year to work with him, and I can't go back and change it. But I tell you, that's probably one of the things that have hurt me the most, that I did not see the importance of that, because years after that, when I started working with a coach and with a mentor, my business just took off, because again, we can only see what we can see.
Right.
And often the problems and challenges we have, it's just having a little bit different perspective can open up, all of the opportunities that are there. So that's definitely a great, great advice. And I'm almost thinking, maybe one of the, we could talk for about half an hour against all of the importance, but that's definitely,
Right.
something that, that is important. So, Frank, this has been awesome as far as, talking about, and we're definitely going to have to do this. The one question that I have for you, and maybe you can, help our listeners. I mean, you do work with, advisors. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you, or they had some questions, what may be the best way to, to get hold of you? But maybe before we even say that, what kind of advisor is it that you're really looking for, or how you can help somebody?
Good question. We've kind of changed Blue Duck recently to work mainly in the federal market. So we're looking for advisors who either have some federal market experience, maybe they're retired military, they like working with, because the federal employees are a weird niche. They're tremendously undereducated in terms of their retirement, et cetera. They're underserved, et cetera. So it'd have to be somebody who really would be more passionate about helping federal employees than just the ones that fog up the mirror. Number two, they need to be coachable, and number three, they need to be, like all of us in this industry, they need to have a work ethic where they're going to go to work without somebody, clocking them in every day. And the best way to contact me probably would be my email. That's the easiest way to contact me. And that's just frank@blueduckwm.com.
Okay, perfect. All right, Frank, this has been awesome, and I'm definitely going to do this soon, chat a little bit more, because I know that there's a lot of wealth of information. And part of the reason why I'm doing these, interviews and podcasts is, as I mentioned, I just want to be the guy I wish I met. And the only way we can really go and change the industry is to start educating advisors about the fact that, there is a little bit more, there's more they need to do, and they need to educate themselves and learn about, other ways than just being stuck in industry, and kind of going beyond that. And again, as I mentioned, between me and you, close to 40 years of experience in the financial business. And it's not just the financial business, it's business in general. And I think advisors really need to, become what I call the professional advisor, or they need to become what I call the entrepreneur advisor. And what you describe, the type of advisors you're looking for, that's who everybody needs to become. They need to become open-minded. They need to become, coachable. They need to become, a specialist, somebody that really, is focusing on and is becoming that go-to person in their market. And that's really what will help them to, to grow their business. So, this has been great, Frank. I appreciate your time, and looking forward to speaking with you again.
I enjoyed it. My pleasure.
All right. That's great.